Have you ever wondered how ancient sacred spaces were actually built? I mean, what were the exact dimensions, the materials, the craftsmanship, and the precise layout that defined the very center of ancient Israelite worship? Well, today, we're taking a really deliberate, deep dive into the architectural and practical instructions found directly in Exodus chapter 27. We are going to walk through this fascinating text step by step, examining the complete physical blueprint of the heavy brass altar, the massive visual boundaries of the courtyard, and the highly specific command for an eternal light.
Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Exodus chapter 27 in a clear and simple way, step by step.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the context and the brazen altar, then move outward to building the courtyard, discuss the oil for the eternal lamp, clarify a few ancient terms, hit our key ideas, and wrap up with some practical lessons and a quick recap.
Section 1. Context and the brazen altar. This covers Exodus chapter 27, verses 1 through 8.
To set the stage here, we are right there with Moses on Mount Sinai. He's receiving direct, highly specific instructions from God on exactly how to build the tabernacle, which is the portable sanctuary where God will dwell among the Israelites. Now in chapter 27, the focus shifts. We move away from the delicate inner furniture of the tent and step outside to the rugged, heavy-duty structures used for the daily outdoor service. Think of this text as a literal step-by-step manufacturing guide. There is absolutely no guesswork here. Every single detail is spelled out so the Israelites can construct exactly what was shown to Moses on the mountain to create a fully functioning outdoor space.
The instructions for the altar are incredibly practical. Verse 1 tells us it has to be made of acacia wood. Now, acacia is this dense, durable hardwood that's native to the desert. It's highly resistant to decay and bugs, which makes it the absolute perfect building material for a wandering people. But obviously, wood alone would burn to a crisp, right? So verse 2 commands that the entire altar be completely overlaid with brass, or bronze, depending on the translation you're reading. It's essentially a hollow wooden box, fully plated in heat-resistant metal. They're also told to make carrying poles, or staves, out of that same acacia wood overlaid with brass. These staves get inserted into brass rings cast for this exact purpose, so this incredibly heavy altar could be picked up and transported whenever the camp moved through the wilderness.
The text is also very specific about the altar's footprint. It's to be 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide, a perfect square. The height is 3 cubits. This symmetry is actually really important. It creates a highly structured, perfectly balanced focal point for the daily sacrifices. And that proportion, 5 by 5 by 3, meant it wasn't overwhelmingly tall. It was highly accessible for the priests, allowing them to comfortably do their heavy, daily work of lifting and managing the offerings without needing ladders or scaffolding. The design perfectly matched its daily purpose. Now, an active altar requires a complete set of tools to go with it, and verses 3 and 4 list them out perfectly. They are to make pots to carry away the ashes, shovels for scooping, basins, which were basically sprinkling bowls for the blood of the sacrifices, flesh hooks, which are essentially large, sturdy meat forks for handling the offerings in the fire, and fire pans for safely carrying hot coals. And every single one of these utensils has to be made of brass to withstand that constant, intense heat. The text also details a brass grating, a specialized network placed halfway up the altar under a specific ledge. This was likely designed to catch anything falling and to allow a continuous updraft of air to feed the fire. Verse 2 also mentions a really distinct architectural feature, the horns of the altar. The text explicitly says, "Thou shalt make the horns of it upon the 4 corners thereof. The horns thereof shall be of one piece with it." Visually, these were upward-pointing projections right on the 4 top corners. And they weren't just attached later as some sort of decorative add-on. They were literally carved from the exact same solid pieces of acacia wood as the altar walls, and then meticulously plated in brass. They served a highly practical purpose for securing sacrifices with cords, and a strong visual purpose, marking the altar's absolute extremities and defining its true boundary.
Section 2. Building the Tabernacle Courtyard. Moving on to verses 9 through 19.
Transitioning from the altar itself to the space surrounding it, God instructs Moses to create a massive perimeter. The text outlines a huge rectangular courtyard to define the sacred grounds where the Israelites would actually gather. The south and north sides are each exactly 100 cubits long. To form these incredibly long walls, they are instructed to hang fine twined linen. These long white linen hangings are supported by 20 pillars on the south side and 20 pillars on the north side. Just imagine this striking visual out in the wilderness, a long, brilliant white wall of woven linen stretching across the rugged, dusty desert landscape, creating a completely unmissable boundary. The west side, the rear of the courtyard, is exactly half that length, 50 cubits wide, supported by 10 pillars resting in 10 sockets. The east side, where the main entrance will be, is also exactly 50 cubits wide. So we end up with a perfectly proportioned rectangular courtyard, 100 cubits by 50 cubits. This creates a vast, deliberately enclosed space for the community to bring their offerings. It established a distinct, separated area that literally walled off the ordinary, everyday chaos of the sprawling Israelite camp from the focused, sacred work happening inside. Now, what's really interesting here is the specific hierarchy of materials detailed in the text. For this outer courtyard, all the heavy foundational elements, the sockets or bases for the pillars, and all the tent pegs holding the massive structure securely down against the harsh desert winds are made of solid brass. But as you move your eyes up the pillars, the materials actually change. The hooks that physically hold the linen hangings and the fillets or bands that decorate the tops of the pillars are entirely made of silver. It's a beautiful, deliberate contrast between the heavy, durable brass foundation grounded in the earth and the shining silver connecting points up above.
Then we arrive at the main entrance in verses 14 through 16. While the rest of the courtyard perimeter is a stark, plain white linen, the east gate is entirely different. It's a massive screen, 20 cubits wide, supported by 4 pillars and their 4 bases. And unlike the plain walls surrounding it, this specific screen is woven with brilliant, vivid colors, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, masterfully embroidered right into the fine twine linen. This incredibly detailed embroiderous work served as a clear, unmistakably vibrant and inviting entrance point to the holy space for anyone approaching from the main camp. Verse 18 summarizes the entire courtyard structure perfectly to ensure complete clarity for the builders. It says, "The length of the court shall be 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 everywhere, and the height 5 cubits of fine twined linen, and their sockets of brass." So practically speaking, this means the walls were uniformly about 7.5 feet tall all the way around. That's tall enough to prevent someone from casually looking over, but not nearly as tall as the inner tabernacle tent. And verse 19 elegantly closes out this architectural section by reminding us that absolutely all the instruments, tools, and pins used for this entire outdoor service are to be made exclusively of brass.
Section 3, Oil for the Eternal Lamp. Let's look at verses 20 and 21.
In the final 2 verses of the chapter, the focus abruptly shifts. We've built the space. Now we look at the ongoing human action required within it. The text reads, "And thou shalt command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure olive oil beaten for the light, to cause a lamp to burn continually." Notice the highly specific requirement here. It isn't just any oil, and it isn't even standard pressed olive oil. It must be pure olive oil beaten for the light. Why beaten? Because gently beating the olives rather than crushing them in a heavy press produced the absolute clearest, finest oil possible without any of the bitter sediment. This specific extraction method ensured the oil burned with the brightest, most smoke-free flame.
Verse 21 tells us exactly who does this work, where it happens, and when. Aaron and his sons, the designated priests, are personally responsible for maintaining this vital light. This maintenance takes place in the tent of meeting, just outside the inner veil that shields the Ark of the Testimony, and they are to tend it from evening to morning before the Lord continually. This gives us a fascinating insight, right? The magnificent physical structure of the courtyard and altar was built once, but the light itself required daily, consistent, unending human maintenance. Without the daily work of the priests to trim the wicks and add that pure oil, the carefully constructed space would simply go dark.
Section 4. Clarifying Ancient Hebrew Terms. Before we look at our final takeaways, let's really quickly clarify the main ancient measurement we've been throwing around throughout this text. We've mentioned the cubit quite a few times. A cubit is an ancient unit of length based directly on the human forearm, specifically measuring from your elbow down to the tip of your extended middle finger. In modern terms, that translates to roughly 18 inches, or about 1.5 feet. So, when the text says the courtyard was 100 cubits by 50 cubits, you can clearly picture a space about 150 feet long and 75 feet wide. That is massive. The altar, at 5 by 5 cubits, was about 7.5 feet square. Understanding this gives you a real, tangible sense of the impressive physical scale of what the Israelites were commanded to build out there in the desert.
Section 5, Key Ideas and Meaning.
So what does this all mean? What are the simple, plain text concepts we are meant to grasp from this incredibly detailed chapter? The crucial point is how these 3 elements work together:
First, the brazen altar is established as the absolute, heavy-duty center of the physical service. It's where the hard, daily lifting of the offerings actually takes place. Second, the massive linen courtyard walls aren't just a simple fence. They define a clear, protective, and visual boundary, deliberately separating the holy, dedicated space from the rest of the busy, everyday camp. And third, the command for the eternal lamp shows us that perfect holy architecture just isn't enough on its own. The light requires constant, dedicated human partnership to keep it burning day after day.
Section 6, Practical Lessons and Recap.
To recap, we've journeyed from the detailed construction of the heavy brass altar to the massive white linen courtyard and finally to the pure oil required for the eternal lamp. But how does this ancient blueprint apply to us today? Well, here is what we can take away. First, just as the linen walls created a dedicated courtyard, you need to establish clear, defined boundaries for what is important in your life to protect your focus and your peace. Second, remember the beaten oil. When you dedicate yourself to a task, bring your purest, most refined effort, not just what is easy or quick. And third, the eternal lamp reminds us of the absolute power of consistency. You can't just build something great once and walk away. You have to show up daily, from evening to morning, to keep your positive impact burning continually.
So, what boundaries will you establish today to protect the sacred, focused spaces in your own life? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.